Welcome to the July 9th, 2019 episode of Reactive Consciousness, the in-depth podcast about my birthday.
Wait,
I'm
wait,
your
wait,
host,
wait, 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 hold
vysethebold.
on. No, nobody told me about this. What's going on here?
And this is...
I, Lotus Prince. This is planned. This is on schedule.
the really funny thing. I think this is the first time it's a release date has fallen on my birthday. But we were just talking about this. Lotus Prince was the first person to remember my birthday.
Why can't my birthday be on a Tuesday so cool stuff comes out on it?
Might have been this year in May, right?
The 29th.
Yeah.
Which means no, it was a
that
Wednesday.
was a Wednesday. It was pretty close.
Yeah, I gotta wait like 6 years. This is bullshit.
Well, no, we do release a podcast on Thursday. Don't you forget? So
That's true. I have a chance.
2 days a week, man. 2 out of 7 ain't bad.
Why couldn't we have released our podcast late and thrown everybody off just to bring out my birthday, which we didn't even talk about?
So, seriously, this is Reactive Consciousness, the in-depth podcast about what happened this week in our lives. We got a lot of really great releases this week and news. Some really fun stuff, like stuff I didn't expect. And it's been happening a lot in 2019. This has actually been one of the best years for, classic gaming and gaming in general. I think it's just been like off the wall like remasters and re-releases of stuff that like we never thought we would see, like just insane shit. So and some of this stuff is really really great. So I'll first start off by stating that on the Switch last week we got a release on the Arcade Archives collection of Ninja Spirit. Are you familiar with this one?
I am not.
So Ninja Spirit is a game that is near and dear to the fans of the PC Engine and TurboGrafx 16. It's one of the best arcade ports that's on that system. It's a pretty accurate port, and it's a lot of fun. This is the arcade version, so it has even better graphics. I'm not sure if they added content to the PC Engine TurboGrafx 16 version, but I'm sure the arcade version is very good too, so I'm definitely going to give that a shot. I've actually never played the arcade version, so I'm pretty excited because it's cool. Like one of the major power ups is what showed up in like Ninja Gaiden later on. You have like these shadow ninjas that like do exactly the same thing.
Yeah, they'll respond to they'll do what you do like a half a second later or something. So you can like
exactly.
combo with yourself.
And it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of high jumping in it. It's kind of similar to Legend of Kage, but it's actually a little bit better.
Actually, if this is what I think it is, I might have actually seen it once. I think if it's the same game, they might have run it at GDQ just like last week.
Yeah, Ninja. Look it up in Google. It looks kind of like it kind of has a similar palette to Revenge of Shinobi. If you look at it from afar, you might think that it looks like Revenge of Shinobi.
I might have seen this then.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see
and
if I can get.
It's a Taito game, I believe.
Yeah, no, they did. They actually ran this at GDQ. So that was kind of a surprise, just because it's a TurboGrafx 16 game of any kind.
Yeah. So it's pretty exciting. I don't think there have been too many re-releases of this one. I think, there really haven't. There may have been a PS2 release when they were re-releasing those PS2 games, but I really don't remember it going on there. This is Oh, okay. No, I'm sorry. This is an IREM game. I apologize. It's not a Taito game, so it wouldn't have shown up. So this is probably it's the first time since IREM's arcade hits that was released by .emu on the PC a few years ago, and those ports weren't the best emulated. So probably hasn't been seeing the light of day very much. So I'm excited. I mean, I'm excited to pick this up. I pick up a lot of these arcade re-releases because you'll never see them again in all likelihood. if they do a release like this, unless you're very lucky. So I'm excited for that. And another classic game called Ziggurat came out for Switch. Are you familiar with this?
For real this time, I don't think so.
Okay, so Ziggurat is very unusual in that it presents itself as an old school first person shooter, kind of like Quake-ish, but it has rogue light elements to it. So and it's fairly old. Like it was a game that was basically released for PC during a time in which like it wasn't a very popular genre. Like the roguelite was not as popular as it is now. So it's really cool that Ziggurat is getting a console release this day and age. I mean, it's been on Steam and GOG for quite a bit because it's kind of a modern classic, from what I understand. Tower of Guns is similar, I think, as well. In fact, you could buy Ziggurat for $3.74 on Steam right now if you really wanted to. So yeah. Actually, no. This one was released in 2014. Yeah. So this was before all of the really big roguelites got some traction. So it's a really cool game. A lot of people really like it, but it's kind of an underground hit. So I think getting some more exposure on the Switch will do it well. So I'm kind of excited about that as well. But I'm always excited about a new way to experience stuff on the go, as our listeners are probably very very well aware. And speaking of, there's another visual novel classic, Clannad. Have you heard of this one?
The only thing I really know about it is
Or
that it's basically
Clannad?
called like it's like it falls into like a sort of subgenre like crying game. Apparently, it's like straight up miserable. And then this has nothing to do with the movie, The Crying Game. I just mean like it's a game where you will cry, and that's kind of the idea.
No, I think we could do without what goes on in the crying game.
Yeah, but no, this is
Yeah,
apparently like just a straight miserable visual novel, like
yeah,
intentionally.
I'm sure it has a lot less to do with an entire plot about transphobia. um,
Yeah, I don't believe that's relevant.
yeah, but this one is highly recommended by Retro Gamer. It is a visual novel that's I don't think it's a dating game, or at least that's not the focus. And it's certainly not a mystery game like the kind that we usually like, or an adventure game. It's more about relationships and
I
things
think
like that.
so, but I don't
Yeah,
know. I don't really know any
interpersonal
more details
relationships.
than that.
Yeah, apparently it's very, 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 very well written,
Yeah.
and like a tearjerker, like you said. So that's a good way to experience it, I'm sure, is on the Switch, just along with a lot of the other visual novels that have been coming to it, that have been modern classics.
Hmm.
Speaking of, there's a really big news on that front. Spike Chunsoft announced that Robotics Notes Elite and Dash, that's both games. The remake of the first game with animated sequences from the anime and then added stuff, just like they did with the
Yeah,
Steins
Steins
Gate Elite.
Gate. Yeah.
Yeah, the Steins Gate Elite release that they did. And Dash are coming out. It's sequel that was released only a little while ago. I think of a couple months ago, actually.
No, it's
So.
funny. We're getting all this. We got
Mhm,
Steins Gate. We got Steins Gate Zero. We got Chaos Child.
mhm.
But not Chaos Head.
So
We're just
yeah,
not doing that.
we didn't get the original game in this series. We actually have every mainline game now,
And
officially
even the
released in
weird
English.
shit, like the Steins Gate lithograph and that 8-bit game that made it onto the Switch, that was like a phone game or something. We actually got it, which is crazy, and still no Chaos Head.
Yeah, so I guess the going theory is that the Chaos had never had a re-release past the 360. I think through the 360 was the last time that Chaos had been re-released. It was originally a PC game,
Yeah.
and so it is I've been playing it recently because I want to move on to the other games. I want to play these in order, even though they're only kind of related. They're more thematically related than
Yeah,
anything.
yeah.
Even the sequels, except for the Steins Gate games, I think are barely related to each other. So like Chaos Child isn't like it doesn't have strong ties to Chaos Head. It
Oh,
has,
okay. Yeah,
yeah, from what
meanwhile,
I
Steins
understand.
Gate Zero, I heard, was like, because the whole thing with Steins Gate is time travel and trying to get back to your main timeline.
Hmm.
Like Steins Gate is basically Back to the Future too. Like, you've brought things in this direction. We don't want that. Do what you can to undo it. So,
Yeah.
Steins Gate Zero is apparently one
An
of the
alternate
alternate
timeline.
timelines if you just,
Yeah,
like, stuck with one of those paths instead.
yeah, yeah. I always kind of like these like I gotta get home kind of things, and then I really loved Sliders when I was a kid. I
Yeah,
love that show on Fox, and I love that like they do get home, but home sucks.
yeah, that's pretty good.
I love that. I love that plot line. It's just like, oh no, they got back home like randomly to the right one, but they got to move on because like home sucks. Like it's kind of like Rick and Morty. There's only like so many realities that are livable.
Well, not only that, but I mean, there was an episode in season 1 or 2 of Rick and Morty where, like, they just fuck up their whole planet and like the rest of the show takes place in a different dimension. Like they went to an
Yeah.
alternate dimension where Rick and Morty died and they just took their place. So like it's surreal. They addressed that in a later episode where Morty tells his sister Summer like, "See those little mounds in the backyard? That's my grave. Like my body is in there. I'm not even like the real like your Morty. Like it's so fucked up."
Yeah, I love that. Well, I'm excited because these games are apparently really good. They're, I think, on the light-hearted side compared to the other two main lines of the science adventure series, is what they're called.
Yeah.
Um, this one, a robotics club is trying to like feasibly make a real mecha.
Okay.
So that's the premise.
Okay,
Um,
yeah, that does sound lighter. Because from what I've heard, Chaos Head was fucked up, and Steins Gate is super. I mean, Steins Gate has its like cheesy, corny moments, but overall, it's really like heavy.
the Chaos games are about murders.
Yeah,
Steins Gate's about time travel, and these ones are about
it's
robotics.
about time travel, and it's also about preventing a murder.
Yeah, yeah. I'm really excited for these as well. Hopefully, at some point, I can catch up on these. I know there's plenty for me to play. I need to get through them all, but I have started already on Chaos Child, so I'm having a fun time with that.
Wait,
It is it.
child or head?
Oh, I'm on Head. I'm sorry,
Okay.
on Head right now. I'm playing the fan translation of that. I recommend that you find out how to play that. You know, and go on to that. It's pretty cool to see also like what the series became because it's like a behemoth now.
Yeah,
You know,
Steins Gate was big enough to get a
it's a
full
multimedia
anime
franchise.
series, and I think Chaos Head has an anime series as well.
Robotics Notes does too.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
Yeah, you know, all of them. I mean, Robotics Notes Elite uses the animation from it. So,
Oh yeah, you did say that. Okay.
that's really cool. This is the one we were waiting on because they hadn't addressed whether Robotics Notes was ever going to come in any form. It was kind of one of those things like people expected it, but we hadn't heard anything, so it was always kind of in limbo. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So I'm excited about that, and I'll probably end up getting those on PC like I have gotten the rest of them because they give you a nice discount for like owning all the ones in the series.
Yeah,
Because you
yeah,
could
yeah.
buy like a bundle. I've been buying those and I've been getting good deals on those, so I'm excited about that. Um, I talked about this next release a couple weeks ago. This is they're coming out with a Space Invaders Invincible collection.
Hmm.
I assume this is going to be Japanese exclusive. One of the very few games like this that's Japanese exclusive. It doesn't make any sense, but they are. For some reason, Taito is being very weird. i.e. Square Enix, is being very weird about these releases. They're only releasing them physically, and they're only releasing them in Japan. They're also doing something that is incredibly how to say it's exploitative, and it sucks because I want them. It wouldn't be so bad if it was just like some game I didn't care about, but like I just this just happens to hit my niche of things that I care about. So there is a special edition with more games on it. Just like they did with Darius, and
that always bothers me. I remember you mentioned that for Darius a bunch of times. Like special editions, like come with soundtracks or art books, but like more games, like the non-special edition is just incomplete. That's frustrating.
And it's much more expensive. It's much more expensive. It's not even it's not even close. It's actually over twice as expensive.
For Space Invaders.
Yeah, so 5,200 yen for the regular edition. The special edition is 16,800 yen. $150 essentially.
For Space Invaders, don't make me laugh.
For a collection of Space Invaders games, most of them don't have modern releases at all. So, and get this, they did this with Darius and pissed me the hell off, because even though I bought the limited edition, that's still incomplete. Didn't I tell you about this?
I think so.
What they did was they had a Prime Day edition that you had to buy on Japanese Amazon exclusively one day that they had it available.
Yeah, that's obnoxious.
And you get a code for a remaining game.
And even then, it's a code and not like on the disc or card or whatever.
It's even sillier than that. I don't think I mentioned this, but it's a separate app on your Switch.
I'll get the hell out of here.
That one game is a separate app.
Well.
And you cannot download it any other way than with that code. So it's ridiculous. So they're doing that again. There is an exclusive game. It's a exclusive Space Invaders 90 for the Mega Drive or Genesis, rather, if you don't know what the Mega Drive is. So I will order this, and I will not be happy about it. But it really sucks, because if you look for even the special edition Darius game right now, it is one of the most expensive modern games I've ever seen. Like a game that basically just came out. I think it's like over twice its value now.
Yeah.
Even if it's used, just because of how scarce it is. And probably even more if you have an unused code. But why would I don't like, who would hold on to that? I don't know.
Scalpers.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a bummer, because there's some really good titles on here. There's the original Space Invaders, which might as well be the original Japanese hit video game. The color version of that, which is the same but color. And it's not even real color. It's like colored cellophane put over the rows of them to make it like to give the illusion of color.
So it's like the Vectrex, where you have the illusion of background with the overlays.
Exactly.
But the listeners can relate to this, the Vectrex.
Give them an example that only I understand, and also, like, you don't have to give it to me to explain it.
All right, I'll make a more contemporary, or not a contemporary, I'll make a more relatable example. The Magnavox Odyssey, which is an overlay for your TV.
Essentially, all the TVs were black and white in 1978. Well, not all of them, but many of them.
Well, no, what I really mean, though, is not even color, but so much like when you had to like use the honor system for your video games, where it's like, navigate this maze. We don't know how to program walls, so here's a drawing of a wall you can put on front of your TV.
Exactly.
And just you try doing it for real.
Now you're playing hockey instead of tennis.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, they would put overlays on in the older systems and use the static generated by the the TV set to get it to stick.
It's freaking genius.
It is. They thought of that. It's kind of like how light guns work. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, it kind of is. Yeah, that's why they don't work on modern TVs, because it relies on flicker.
Yeah. But Space Invaders Part 2, which is 2-player. Super Space Invaders 91, also known as the Majestic 12. That is like almost like a Parodius game. That one's a lot of fun. That's one of my favorite games. Space Invaders Extreme, also a fantastic game, which was later on PC, and it's also on the DS and PSP. Very fantastic game. And then the ones in the special edition are Space Invaders DX. I think that's just basically a 1994 version of Space Invaders, with extra stuff in it, that kind of thing.
That's the otherwise known as the Director's X. The Director's Cross.
It's actually a frowning person with like a big mouth. And their eyes closed on the side. Anyway,
it's so stupid.
It can be an emoji. Anyway, Space Cyclone and Lunar Rescue, which aren't even Space Invaders games, they're just very old Taito games. So they're bonus Taito games. There you go. From that era. One was from 1980 and the other one was from 1979. So Lunar Rescue, I believe I played, and that one's pretty fun. So moving on from that, there was 2 announcements from Way Forward, which is pretty exciting. Did you see these?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, good. So you have the bigger one, which is Shantae 5.
With an animation by fucking Trigger Studios.
Yeah, really, really cool. I'm excited for that. I have a lot of games to follow up on. I haven't played any of the Shantae games all the way through.
And by the way, if you're curious about Trigger's animation is ridiculous. They did Gurren Lagann, didn't they?
I don't know, actually. Studio Trigger?
Yeah, let me look that up. I'm reasonably sure they did Little Witch Academia, which looks gorgeous. Let me see. Studio Trigger.
That was Gynax, I think, did
Gynax
Gurren
Lagann?
Yeah.
Oh, you know why?
Kill la Kill.
Trigger was founded by former Gynax employees.
Okay. That makes sense.
Like, they didn't do Gurren Lagann, but some people in Trigger may have back in the day.
Okay.
But yeah, they did Kill la Kill.
Inferno Cop.
Little Witch Academia. Well, Inferno Cop's not the best example of, like, this is what Trigger animation looks like, because that whole thing was a joke.
Yeah.
But, yes, that is hysterical.
It's really funny. It's like an Adult Swim show if it were made by Japanese people.
It really is.
Really
but good. Like Kill la Kill and Little Witch Academia, it's like Gainax in that when you want to have something animated and lots of stuff happening, they're among the best studios to make that happen. It's
very kinetic.
Extremely kinetic. Like, if you want to see like an action scene, it is bananas.
So they did the intro to Project Cross Zone.
Okay.
Let me see here. They did
the first one.
Yes.
Very nice.
The 3DS game. They also did the intro to the season 2 of Black Dynamite, the TV show.
Oh wow, I can kind of see that.
They did illustrations for Fire Emblem Fates.
Nice, very nice.
They worked on the Steven Universe video game.
And they definitely do have a look. Like, if you just look at a still of Shantae from the intro, it kind of has the Trigger look to it, like with the hair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and OK Go, their opening animation as well, which is a very popular show right now.
That one I don't know.
Yeah. OKKO is one of Cartoon Network's big series right now, actually.
Okay.
So, you're not up on the children's TV shows? I mean, come on.
Yeah, sorry. Jeez, I'm a disgrace.
You probably think Adventure Time's still on the air.
No, I knew it wasn't because everybody was talking about the wonderful ending it had.
I know. I'm joking. But yeah, so this it's a beautiful, beautiful intro. It's really the Shantae series is a really great series, and all of them are kind of different in terms of structure. Some of them are just kind of like a straight up platformer. Some of them are like Metroidvania.
Even the original Game Boy Color game was kind of a Metroidvania.
Yeah, that game is also the hardest out of the bunch, so that's why I'm having a hard time progressing through the series, because
Yeah.
the first game is also the hardest
It's too
by a
bad
long
that it's
shot.
only available, as far as I know, on the 3DS, like the eShop, because like it's a
Yeah,
Game Boy Color game, but it hasn't been released anywhere else but the 3DS eShop.
yeah. I mean, at least it's on a system that you could still currently get it for,
For
so
real, yeah, it's
that's
amazing it
good.
was re-released at all.
Yeah, yeah.
That's something I would like to see. Little limited run games do a
A
physical for.
repro
That'd be
of.
amazing. Yeah,
Yeah, that would be really
people
cool.
would that would actually be real competition to get that.
Oh yeah.
Like there are some games that sell out quicker than others. I guarantee that would be one of them.
Well, that one has a lot of crossover appeal. It's first of all, it's part of an active series.
Yep.
Number one, number two, you have a lot of people that are just Shantae fans in general. You also have a pretty large following of just people who like Way Forward in general.
Yeah, and among the collector crowd, the real Shantae Game Boy Color game is extraordinarily expensive now because
It's
it
probably
didn't.
the most expensive game, maybe other than Trip World.
Yeah, like it was a very late Game Boy Color game, and
Yeah,
not a lot of
it's one
people
of the
bought it back
last.
in the day, so it's hard to find now. So if they did like a re-release of it, that'd be nuts.
Yeah. And then their other release, this was really big for me because I'm a huge fan of this series ever since I was a kid. River City Girls, which was a big surprise.
Oh yeah.
So this is part of the Kunio, an extension of the Kunio-kun series. Any of the, it's basically called the River City series now, which is good. They kind of homogenized it, but the original games all kind of had different localized games because they were published by a lot of different companies.
Yeah.
So this is the same series, obviously, as River City Ransom, Super Dodgeball.
I forgot what it's called with the
World
soccer
Cup
game.
Soccer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there we go.
World Cup Soccer.
Game's freaking cool.
All of them are a lot of fun. I really enjoyed those back in the day, and I've been playing a lot of the newer releases. The Tokyo Beatdown for 3DS was quite fun. I talked about that on the air, but this one is being made by Way Forward, and it's probably the first game in a long time that hasn't used the River City like house style.
Yeah, it looks very
It looks
different.
like a Way Forward game. But that's okay. That means it's going to be good. The company that holds the license for the River City series kind of is very loose with it, so they kind of make a lot. They let a lot of other companies kind of mess around with it, and this one looks like to be the most different. They also put out like a River City Underground only a little while ago, which was a successful Kickstarter campaign.
Oh, clear
But
that ties into the Tony Hawk Underground universe, doesn't it?
yes, but no, it's part of the Ultima Underground. No,
Finally, a second game.
actually, I think there are two Ultima Underground games, but
Oh,
anyway,
wait. No, it was Underworld, Ultima Underworld.
not the one that I played.
Yeah, you probably never heard of it. It was underground.
It was an underground hit. But seriously, look up the animations for the combat in this. It looks
Yeah.
great. It's going to be obviously a co-op game, and you play the girlfriends from the River City series, which is really neat. This is coming to pretty much everything, and so is Shantae. It's coming to all the consoles and PC, so this is going to be really fun. I'm excited. It has some beautiful animation, just like it's looks so much fun to play, like a joy to play. Probably the best animated, best looking version game in this entire series by a long shot, which is really cool. I'm excited about that. Let's see here. So we wanted to also follow up on the Metal Wolf Chaos news.
Oh yeah, I gotta eat my words, and so does basically the entire internet, because it's not getting a July 4th release date, because otherwise it would have been released August 6th.
Yeah, which is
Maybe they gotta fix stuff or whatever, and that's cool. It's just
it's
August
also kind of
6th.
a funny like it's also it's the anniversary of the Hiroshima bombing.
Oh, is it
Um,
really?
yeah,
Jesus
so
Christ.
it's very ironic. It cannot be on purpose.
It's a
Uh,
Japanese game.
about America, so it's very ironic and funny. Not
uh,
funny, but like cringy.
that's
But
weird. That'd be like an American game like about Japan released on like December 7th. It's like okay, I guess.
how about try being Capcom and make a game about like your enemies defeating you
Yeah, like
and
what the
selling it to
fuck?
them?
Yeah.
1942, an entire series about this.
That is way out
Fact.
there.
I don't get, and people play it in Japan like without irony, like.
Yeah, whatever, man. It's a cool shooter. I need one.
But yeah, maybe it's supposed to be tongue in cheek over there, but I don't. Who the hell knows? But anyway, Metal Chaos coming August 6th. I mean, that's not too far away. We got another month, so.
Yeah, I'm okay with this.
Yeah, yeah, and if it's all fixed up, I'm good. I'm good.
I want this game so bad.
Yeah, so that's being put out by Devolver Digital in a very surprise, um, a very surprise move. Not their usual kind of thing to release. So this is really cool that they're
Yeah,
even
I mean, I
doing
mentioned
this.
this before, but they announced it at E3, not this recent one, but last year. But they were
Yeah.
kind of teasing it up to that point on Twitter. They were posting like the presidential symbol from the game. So like,
People are like, oh shit.
if you knew what it was, then you were like, oh, but like, how many people
Who knew what it
that?
was?
Yeah. So like, of course, there were some people on Twitter who were like, you don't really mean, and everyone else was like, huh? And then they announced it, and people lost their shit.
Yeah, this is really cool. This is one of the most eminently playable From Software games from this era. It's a lot of fun. It's not as clunky or like semi-realistic as the Armored Core games, so it's
Yeah.
going to be a lot of fun. And it has the best FMV
Oh
stuff
yeah,
going
yeah.
on.
It's the Starship Troopers cartoonishly militaristic propaganda commercials.
Oh,
Except
yeah.
it's for like political advertisements. It's and like news media. It's incredible.
It's so over the top too with like the voice acting and everything. So I'm
Welcome to the White House.
welcome to the it explodes. It's so good.
Came to the wrong neighborhood, motherfucker.
And he has his plane like under the reflecting pool
I
at the
forgot
Washington
about
Monument. It's amazing.
It's
His
like
runway.
it's like
It's his
Japan
runway.
thinks America's like this, and America wishes America was like this.
Oh yeah, no. Like everybody's like rubbing, like if only like the true patriots knew about this game, they'd
It's
be
like,
like rubbing their
60s
hands.
Batman, where like like a hole opens in the cave wall and there's the Batcave. It's
Exactly.
that's like the president.
The president. Oh man, President Batman. Oh
Yeah, it's just like Roger Smith in the Big O. Like his whole like his car is inside his giant robot's foot, like slides out. Like it. Oh man, it's
so over
delightful.
the top. I
And
love
Roger
it.
Smith really, like, if you look at his car, I think that whole thing was actually supposed to be like, you know how there's Japanese like Spider-Man, where Spider-Man
sure.
is a giant mech.
Mm.
Like the Big O, I'm reasonably sure, like for real, is '60s Batman, like with a
Oh.
mech.
It's very much inspired by Batman. Like the more and more you watch that series,
Yeah.
I think it was even produced by the same people as Batman the animated series.
Oh, that's too good.
Yeah, I think even the same animation staff too, because
You know what was
a lot
funny?
of that was animated in Japan.
You know what was funny was that season 1 was going to be the end because there just wasn't enough Japanese interest, and
Yeah.
like American support brought in a season 2. They were like, okay, I guess.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
too good.
Yeah, I only know one other show like that, and that's Fooly Cooly, that got a sequel, and that was much later
Oh.
because of American interest.
Nice.
Um,
I love stuff like that.
yeah, it's really cool. It's kind of like why we still keep having Transformers sequels. It's not because of American interest; it's because of Chinese interest.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, 'cause
Yeah.
for the movies. Yeah.
They keep getting worse and worse, ticket sales in America, but in China, like they're still really strong, so
That's
they keep
pretty
making
funny.
But apparently the most recent one's really good. The Bumblebee movie is apparently the
Well, yeah,
best in the
the non
series.
Michael Bay non sequel one, yes.
It's a prequel. But anyway, let me see here. Oh, you're the limited run guy on staff. This past week had a couple doozies here.
Yeah, one of them is kind of like, it's one of those like, oh, okay, like when they released Night Trap and Double Switch, those games aren't great, but it's kind of like
They
you
have a
get
catch
behind the
appeal.
hype because there was like a sort of mystique about them back then, and like, oh, remember these games? So the
Well,
next,
also, like Night Trap is like a famous
well,
it's
Night
important to
Trap
video
got
game history.
notoriety. It is.
It's important to video game history.
But Double Switch is Night Trap without that acclaim.
Yeah,
So it's like,
it's basically just a
so
sequel with Corey Haim.
spiritual sequel.
Spiritual sequel.
But
Yeah.
but Corpse Killer, it happens to be its 25th anniversary, so there's that too. But Corpse Killer was a game on the Sega CD and the Saturn, and I actually don't know which version the limited run game version is. I hope it's the Saturn version. But I don't have high
It's gonna be
hopes.
like a remastered version like Night Trap. They used like the original assets. So it's not as grainy and all that
No,
kind
of
of stuff.
course, but like the Saturn version had like a little bit of extra. It was a little bit enhanced.
Oh, I'm sure they're gonna go to the nines on it and give you as much as they can.
Well, no, I don't know. We'll see. Because like with for example Jack and Daxter, I think the PS4 release was like a remaster of the PS4 rather than the PS3 and stuff like that. So like I don't know which version they're gonna use, but in any case, it's just kind of funny to have Corpse Killer come out physically again.
So,
Not only,
so let's explain what this game is so people
well,
have
it's
the
another one of those
context.
goofy ass FMV games, but in this case, it's sort of
It's a
like
light
a
gun
shooter.
game.
Yeah, it's a light
Yep.
gun game, so much shit's happening on the screen, but the animation
Terrible.
it doesn't make sense with where it is. Like there are just guys walking around in the background, but it looks like they're kind of floaty and stuff like that. Like things are flying at you that don't make
And
sense.
the palette swaps are look like they're glitched out, but they're not.
Yeah, like the everything is really janky. It looks like it was done with like like old school green screen effects where you're just excited that the technology exists and it doesn't look clean like it would today. It's funny for that reason. And once again, like any Sega CD game, the FMV acting is just silly.
I actually like the movie that's going on in the background.
Oh yeah,
It's actually
pretty
pretty
great.
fun. Yeah.
But what's really funny about this, by the way, this is kind of precious. They have a collector's edition and a standard edition, but whichever version you get, the whatever the people who made Corpse Killer are so like all in on this that even if you order a standard version of the game, which I think is available for open pre-order if you're interested, even if you order a standard version of the game, you're gonna get some sort of piece of behind the scenes memorabilia, which might just include like a photo or something.
a cell, like
Yeah,
a
cell
film
maybe.
cell.
There could be like a VHS tape. Like you don't know what you're gonna get. So like, I wasn't really that interested in picking up Corpse Killer because like we
Fuck
have
it.
like the Saturn versions, so it's like
Yeah.
I mean, less grain would be nice, I guess, but okay. But for the memorabilia alone, I don't know what I'm gonna get, but I'm very curious. And also, Limited Run Games has already released with Supergiant before the game Bastion. They've released
Oh,
that
sure.
Physically.
That's a
Well,
great game.
Yeah,
I love that
very amazing voice acting all the way through. And now they're doing another Supergiant game, Transistor, which a lot of people were super, super hyped about.
Yeah, a lot of people say that this is their favorite game from them.
Yeah, Supergiant has 3 games right now: Bastion, Transistor, and I believe its first was Pyre, Pyre, and they are working on. I
A
think it's
fourth
called
game.
Hades. I think
Yeah.
it's available for there's
Pyre's
like a beta
much
of it or
different
something.
than the first two games. Pyre's like a sport, like it has like a sport component to it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But
But
yeah,
anyway.
Transistor got a lot of acclaim when it came out, so it's cool to see that it's getting the physical treatment as well. And the collector's edition comes in a gorgeous box, and it has like a soundtrack, a copy of like the Ring from the game. Again, I went with the standard because the collector's edition has a bunch of just like extra physical swag that I'm not particularly interested in, and I do like the soundtrack, but I could always go to Supergiant's website and order that myself.
It's a beautiful soundtrack. It's one of the best parts of that game.
Yeah,
if you ask me.
Supergiant's soundtracks for both Bastion and Transistor, and I think Pyre as well. Like Supergiant has some killer soundtracks, and
Yeah.
all 3 of them are available on CD and I think also vinyl.
I played halfway through Transistor, so and I played all through Bastion. Not because I didn't like Transistor, but I just got distracted. But it's a fantastic game. I like the way that the story's revealed to you.
Yeah.
It's one of those games where you have to pick up lore bits on the way.
You might say it's the
Um,
Dark Souls of Supergiant games.
oh God, we need to eliminate that from the lexicon. We really do.
It really is annoying how, like, oh, this game's tougher than I thought it would be. Like Dark Souls. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, let's
My,
move
my
on from
favorite
that.
was when people were calling the Crash Bandicoot re-release, like, it's like Dark Souls. Like, number one,
No, it
nobody
is
said
not.
Dark Souls was like fucking Crash
Like an
Bandicoot,
old
so shut
arcade
your
game.
dumbass mouth. And number two, the re-release had some broken things that the original
Sure.
didn't, so it actually was. Like, some people were like, this game's harder than I remember. Like, no, it literally is harder than you remember.
It's because the timing's off.
Yeah.
Because all three games have different timing,
Yeah.
and the company who remade it didn't change the timing for each game.
Yeah.
Like the timing for the jumps in 1, 2, and 3 are exactly the same, and they shouldn't be.
Yeah.
So they could fix that easily with a patch. I don't know why they don't.
Yeah.
But whatever. So let's move on here. We also have Shenmue 3. Boy, they are botching this release, but I guess they're trying to do their best to appease people.
Yeah,
So
I got an email from them that said, like, sorry guys, we're not going to be able to pull off the Steam keys, but we will offer you a free digital PS4 or Epic, like, whatever
yeah,
version you prefer download. And, like, it's something, but people are pissed because they wanted a Steam release. I mean, they didn't know about Epic at the time, but now they do, and Epic's a bunch of shits. So, like, on principle, they're like, well, where's my fucking Steam release that you still have in writing as of an available option?
yeah. I said this before, and I'll say it again. I'm all for pro-consumer attitude and having more choices, but Epic has shown themselves to be very anti-consumer
Well,
with,
yeah,
with what they're
they're
doing.
anti-choice. Like, I mean,
Choice,
they have timed
exactly.
exclusives, to be fair, not complete exclusives, but, like, to sneak in at the last second and eliminate the option that you had opted for with Metro Exodus and now this is just so sleazy.
Yeah, no, it sucks. But they recently came forward in the Kickstarter and said that you can get just like a full refund if you want, if
Yeah,
you're really
that's
unhappy.
something, and I think some people are gonna go for that too,
Sure. I
which is a
mean,
shame because, like, some people went for some expensive perks for the Kickstarter.
yeah. I originally when I kickstarted this, I went for the PC version, but I think I'm gonna opt for the PS4 version this time around. And that's because I have Shenmue 1 and 2 on PS4.
Yeah, same
So
with me at this
yeah.
point. And not only that, but, like, the Yakuza games have been on, like, the PlayStation first and everything. I wouldn't be surprised if the Shenmue were designed for PS4 this time around. It was held back by Sony in the first place.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm also I'm wondering if I'm even gonna like this because it's an old style game. First of all, like the 1 and 2 are outclassed by Yakuza by a long shot, and Yakuza's the same, like, is the realization of what they wanted to do.
Well, yeah, but now that they have that, though, Shenmue 3 might have, like, elements that make it a playable game at this point. Like, now they can do it. I know
the big
it still
problem
needs to
is
feel like Shenmue. I know that, but
the
they can make it
pro-
playable.
the problem is the first two games had like a lot of like Sega fan service, and that was part of the charm.
That's true.
And it has
Yeah.
none of that. 3's gonna have none of that
Well,
because
well,
it has
though,
nothing to do with Sega.
no, that's true, but there may be an out. Remember how Bayonetta was Sega fan service, but then
Oh, sure.
Nintendo took Bayonetta 2, but then Bayonetta 2 had all sorts of Nintendo fan service? Maybe they can go all in with that and do Sony fan service. If
Like
they do,
have
though, I hope that it's not like...
Parappa toys.
No, I don't care about that.
Yeah.
I mean, go for it. Show me weird Sony shit. But, like, what I hope they don't do is in the arcade, if they have the same fucking 3 games that every Yakuza game has, like Space Harrier for the 100th time, Hang On for the 100th time, like, I've already played this in, like, 4 games in a row. Please, Shenmue, do something different.
Yeah.
Although I'll give them a pass if they have Space Harrier, because the original Shenmue pulled that off. That was kind of funny. I did see a screenshot, by the way. They had some game called, like, like QTE Adventure 3 or
Oh,
something. They're
that's
bringing the
cool.
QTE arcade games back, which is kind of funny. Because, like, a lot of people may think, like, I don't know where people think QTEs originated in. Like, the first time I was really familiar with them was, like, the first God of War. But Shenmue, I think, even originated the
Shenmue coined
term,
coined
yeah,
the term.
quick time event.
So I mean, probably you could trace it back to Dragon's Lair. Dragon's Lair is probably the first
Oh, that yeah,
game
that makes
mechanic that's like
sense. That
that.
makes sense. That would make
Um,
sense. Yeah,
but
but with it's funny though
yeah,
because with Shenmue, I did play it on the Dreamcast several years back. But then when I got into the Yakuza series, there are tons of quick time things you have to do, including in battle.
hmm
And then when I went back to Shenmue One on the PS4, I was like, oh yeah, because like I remember some people saying it was the prototype of Yakuza, and I'm like, I'm not
yeah.
really seeing it. The gameplay is so different. But when I played Shenmue again, no, I totally get how like it's like an alpha of like a Yakuza game.
Yeah, because like it has all the like the fun stuff like going to the arcade and
Yeah, you go to
the
the
Sega
arcade,
fan
you play the
service,
games, Sega
e-
fan service, QuickTime events,
exploration,
extreme emphasis on storytelling and long cutscenes because Yakuza
and
really does that.
the fighting engine.
Yeah, the fighting engine.
Yeah.
The main difference is that Shenmue just has janky gameplay when you're walking around town.
hmm
Yakuza handles that a lot better. You
Sure.
know what? You know what's funny now that I think about it is Yakuza 1 and 2. Not 100% of the time, but when you're in town, you're dealing with fixed camera angles like Resident Evil
Yeah.
1. But like with Shenmue, no, it was like I don't think you could control the camera. Like, you could just center it behind yourself, like in Resident Evil
Yeah.
4, but like you had more of a look behind you as you walk around perspective, like Yakuza 3, which is kind of interesting. I mean, Yakuza 3 you could fully control the camera, but it felt more like you're looking around town rather than eagle eye view.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how it turns out. So Nippon Ichi Software, which we did a whole episode on,
Hmm.
because they were having a bit of trouble a few weeks back, seems to be pulling it forward here.
Yeah, I mean, I forgot if we mentioned it, but you talked about Disaster Report. What was it, 4?
Mhm.
Last week. I mean, that's got like a
Published by them.
collector's edition being released by Nippon Ichi. Like they're still putting out stuff on their site and everything.
Yeah, so they're moving forward and putting Disgaea Complete on Switch. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
there will be 1, 4, and 5 on the Switch now. So that's pretty cool. They announced that recently, and that's great because that'll be another one of the mainline games that will have a modern port.
Yeah, I think 1, 4, and 5 are the best games in the series anyway. Like
hmm
obviously 1 is like the prototypical version. Like all the others have quality of life improvements. Although 1's re-release would have had those quality of life improvements, but like 1 still has so much heart to it with the story and everything.
hmm
Like with some other games, the gameplay is just as good as it ever was, but you might not care about the characters as much as like Laharl. Like Disgaea 2, I don't really remember what the story is, and Disgaea 3, the story was okay, but the gameplay just keeps getting better and better. It would be cool to see a re-release of 2 and 3. And I gotta say, if you ever decide to sort of cheat and grind by killing your own high-level characters because they can't fight back, if you do it like 100 times or something, you get the bad ending. And I don't remember what the bad endings are in most of the games, but I remember two's is fucked up. It's worth a YouTube.
Well, one thing that I also want to point out is probably one of the spin-offs does desperately need a re-release, a modern one. D2, I think is what it's called. It's the sequel to Disgaea 1.
Yeah, I mean, it was just called
hmm
Disgaea 2, but when it was released, like, I think a later release was called D2.
No, that's a whole different game.
Oh, yeah?
So this is the sequel. This is Laharl's sequel. Is called D2.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
Disgaea 2 stars Adele, a completely different character. He looks like male Vanessa from King of Fighters.
Yeah, Disgaea D2 is stars Laharl again.
Okay.
So it's the sequel.
That's
It,
interesting because Laharl usually, like, I've mentioned this before, but in a lot of those Nipponichi games, like Disgaea, Phantom Brave, Makai Kingdom, you'll get cameos from people from other games, and Laharl's, like, always showing up and addressing that he still exists and is doing his thing.
well, he's also at the focal point of when Nippon Ichi kind of made it, and
Yeah, yeah.
became a major player in the publishing game.
Yeah, I think La Pucelle
So
came out earlier, but Disgaea just caught on.
Yeah, that was the game that was a big hit when Atlas brought it over. So
Yeah.
at the time, because there weren't any Japanese strategy RPGs like that coming out at the time, old school ones. People were like comparing it to like Final Fantasy Tactics at the
I was
time.
just gonna say, yeah,
Yeah.
that's the last tactics RPG of that that I can think of that came before the Nippon Ichi stuff decided to
Well,
like
Tactics Ogre.
really run with it. Oh, that's true. Tactics
Yeah.
Ogre, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
and
Ogre Battle
yeah,
64 and all that stuff.
Well, yeah, Ogre Battle was there was also an Ogre Battle on PS1, wasn't it? Was it the same game?
Yeah, so Ogre Battle and Tactics Ogre for PS1 were actually remakes of the same named games from the Super Famicom.
Oh, okay.
Well, Ogre
March of the
Battle
Black Queen
actually
or
had a Super
something.
Nintendo release miraculously, but
Yeah, March of the Black Queen.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, but both of those are pretty outdated at this point. If you want to play Tactics Ogre, play the PSP one. That's really really good.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah, they need to release D2 because that hasn't been that's still stuck on the PS3. There's no PC port or anything really other than the original release. So that kind of stinks. Okay, moving on. We have let's see here. Oh, so there's some other updates as well. So the game Soul Seraph that I talked about last week, that's a spiritual successor to ActRaiser. This is a very on the nose spiritual successor. They just released who is making the soundtrack. Guess who it is?
I mean, I don't know who.
You don't know who did the original?
No.
Oh,
That
Yuzo Koshiro.
person. Oh, Yuzo Koshiro. Okay, that's awesome.
So they hired Yuzo Koshiro for Soul Seraph.
Marvelous.
So that's even greater. I'm sure they had their contacts through Sega. Sega's publishing this game, so Yuzo Koshiro is very very much closely tied to Sega. So
By the
today,
way, speaking of Yuzo Koshiro at GDQ, I've never seen this before. I've seen Streets of Rage 2 runs a couple times, but they actually ran Streets of Rage 1 in a speed run this time, which was pretty entertaining. It was a solo run on hard mode, which is no joke. But what was funny was they were like repeatedly giving shoutouts to Yuzo Koshiro, and when there was no talking, the tech people in the background would turn the game volume up like a little bit, and like you can't see them because you're looking at the player from like the TV's perspective, so you're looking at the couch and the audience behind them. But they were saying like for certain levels, just the entire tech crew was just like head bobbing to the music. It's freaking great.
So he didn't do very many Super Nintendo games, but ActRaiser was a crowning achievement. It was a very early release for the system, and his soundtrack is one of the best on the system. He even has quoted himself as saying, "I don't think anybody will beat me." And then until he listened to Nobuo Uematsu's Final Fantasy soundtracks, and then he was just like, "Ah, shit." But but he's in good company there. He's just as good, if you ask me, as those soundtracks. Final Fantasy VI's soundtrack is like
it's unreal.
Jesus.
And then there's Yasunori Mitsuda, who did I think most of Chrono Trigger. Who did like a couple of the things in that to help out at the last second. Yasunori Mitsuda, you might describe his music as Keltotropic.
Yeah.
I still don't know what that means.
Maybe we can ask Lazaro one of these days. He probably won't give us a straight answer though.
I don't think he worked on the first game, but it's still funny.
Of course, he worked on the original Barkley, didn't he?
No, he was working on the second one, but I don't believe he worked on the first one.
Really?
Because I think he corrected us on that a while back.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay.
We have to ask Chef Boyardee, I think, which is an amazing name.
I mean, somehow his sense of humor meshes well with them. Then, if that's the case, but anyway.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, you can't tell the difference.
Yeah, it's a very esoteric like sense of humor. So it's like you guys somehow found each other. I don't know.
Kuwabara.
But anyway, in the same line, there is another classic Sega composer who just released a track onto SoundCloud. He has a game coming out this week on Thursday, I think. or Friday. It's Lethal League Blaze. Did you played the original Lethal League with me a couple times, I think, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
I know that there was a second game released. I guess this might be the one you're talking about, where you're allowed to get hit by the ball because you have a health meter.
So this is a kind of like in the vein of a lot of the couch competition games that have come out since Towerfall. Um, this is a really fun game where you hit a ball at each other, and it's like a four-player like melee kind of
Yeah,
thing.
like you're all operating on the ground, although you can jump. The idea is there's a little ball in the center of the screen. One of you hits it, and it bounces all up and down, like off the ceiling, wall, and floor. And if you hit it as it comes at you, it like the ball gains energy and goes faster. And if someone hits that
And
back,
you
it
also
gets still
tag it.
faster.
You tag it for your character so you can't get hurt by it.
Yeah, so you know
Yeah.
how because otherwise, I think you'd be unable to recover from your own hits after
Yeah.
a point. But like it's kind of like Windjammers, where you can do like power moves, but if the person immediately counters it, it's like a better power move, and you can get faster and faster until one of you inevitably messes up. Lethal League is like where that like with Windjammers that may happen with Lethal League. That's the only thing that happens. It's amazing.
I should also tell people that it takes place in it looks like a 2D fighter. It takes place in a similar space as a 2D fighter, but
Yeah.
of course you can only get hit by the ball. It's kind of hard to visualize, so I recommend watching a video of it. But
Yeah, it
apparently
gets
this
really really fast.
a lot of people really like the first one, and apparently even more people like the sequel. Apparently it's a better in every way kind of
Yeah,
thing.
the sequel's
So
cool because once again, it doesn't shut down the whole operation once you get hit. You can get hit like a couple times.
yeah. So I'm sure the matches are a little less random as a result. So
Yeah.
a little bit more competitive then. The soundtrack edition. There is a track by Hideki Naganuma. Do you know who that is?
I do not believe so.
He is the fantastic composer of the Jet Set Radio series.
Oh god damn! Does he have
And
samplings from weird movies or TV shows no one's ever heard of?
sure he does. And I recommend listening to this sound for free. This song for free on SoundCloud because it's really good, and it's definitely his style.
Place your
He also
bets, ladies and gentlemen.
yeah, he did the soundtrack to Sonic Rush as well, which is also fantastic.
Oh, that's
Very
right. Yeah.
very great soundtrack. But I figured I'd plug that along with it because I follow him on Twitter, and I'm always very happy when he has work. Because
Wait,
he doesn't
actually,
work.
if you follow on Twitter, why don't you go ahead and ask him where the hell he got those audio samples from Funky Dealer?
Yeah, it's probably like an old like 1940s movie or something
Just
like
like
that.
where the hell was it? Because like I would love to get to a point where you're just watching a movie that you don't know is that movie, and you just hear like we have a shooter and a good one. And you're like, that's what it's from? Ah, like, that would be amazing.
I know that one of the Sonic Rush songs, where it goes too black, too strong, is actually a quote, is a sample from a Malcolm X speech.
Oh, yeah, I think I've actually heard about that.
Yeah. So he has some really cool esoteric, like,
Actually, you know what's really weird? I don't remember if this was from Sonic
quotes.
Rush. Which Sonic game had the haunted ship? Was that Rush?
It's probably Rush Adventure.
All right,
the sequel.
because there's a part, the way that track starts, that do 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 do, like that, I think came from like one of the Frogger PS1 games, and it's just like, okay.
Sonic Haunted Ship.
Yeah, it sounds gorgeous.
Huh. Yeah, it's Sonic Rush Adventure, like I said.
Yeah, but like
it's a sequel.
the little jingle immediately when you start the track, like it's in like the underground mine level, and like I forgot what it's called, Frogger Adventure or whatever, like Frogger Adventure 2 on like PS1. It's just like who discovered that connection?
Well,
I played Frogger. I remember this. Okay.
Actually, a lot of people might not realize this, but Sega published the original Frogger in the United States, even though it was made by Konami.
Wow.
So, yeah. So we got a couple things before we move on here. There was some really big things in the classic gaming world here for people that are into older systems. So This is a big thing for people that don't want to modify their systems. Eon, who puts out one of the more popular HDMI converters for the GameCube.
Yeah, very convenient, especially because it's external. You can plug it into. If your GameCube explodes, you can just take it out and put it in a different GameCube.
They are releasing an adapter, an HDMI adapter for the N64.
Yeah, that's really cool.
But there are a couple caveats to this. First of all, it's a little on the expensive side. It's $150. That's
That's
quite
about
hefty.
what the GameCube one was for a while. That was its launch price.
But it's a bit different. So, and I'll tell you why. The GameCube one, of course, can naturally go up to 480p, which was what the GameCube did at the time.
Yeah, that's the thing. It doesn't upscale. It's just HDMI out.
So the N64 is similar in that the best that you can get out of an unmodded US N64 is S-Video. It's upscaled S-Video. Okay. So there are some software filters and things like that you can mess around with to make it look a little bit better that go along in the dongle. So this is really for somebody who doesn't want to put through the hassle of getting the HDMI mod or the RGB mod.
Yeah, those mods are better, but they're more expensive, and if you do them yourself, they're, I hear, pretty difficult to do.
The HDMI mod is probably the most difficult mod that exists for a mainstream video mod right now on any old system. It's very, very difficult and labor intensive. I'm lucky enough to have one, but it is the best thing.
I think we got them for the same place.
You got the N64 HDMI mod? I didn't realize that.
No, I mean you did. You forgot. Like, remember when Retro Gamer visited you?
Oh yeah.
And you stopped by Classic Game Junkie and you were asking about like an N64 mod, and the guy told you like, oh yeah, someone just walked out with one like today or whatever. Like that was me.
Oh, wow, nice. Well, the N64 Ultra HDMI is also very difficult to get your hands on. It's produced in very low numbers. It's expensive. I had to wait
for that one myself. Yeah.
And you need to find a modder that is both skilled enough and willing to do it for a decent price. So all of those things are...
Glenside, Pennsylvania is good enough.
All of those things are detractions, but it is the best way to play the N64 by a long shot. The HDMI mod makes it look like it never looked before, because it cleans up, it takes out the anti-aliasing and does a lot of things that the original hardware was very limited.
And it also has graphical tweaks you can do with it, which is pretty cool. You can set it to 720, 1080, turn on and off smoothing. It's pretty sweet.
It's one of the best mods you can do for an old system, and it makes a world of difference. Now, if you don't want to go through all that hassle, that's fine. This is a good way to do it because it'll be easy.
Well, that's the thing. Like, if all you want to do is play an N64 on your TV, which you can't because TVs only take HDMI now, then, this is the way to do it.
Yep. And moving on from that, so this is not something I am particularly interested in, but I thought it was cool. So I liked hearing it. So somebody's working on a Jaguar SD flash cart, which is really cool. And just like we were talking about with the Mega SD, they added Jaguar CD capability, so you will never have to use an actual Jaguar CD ever again
good,
if you're into the Jaguar.
I was going to say, from what I heard, it's very difficult to find a working Jaguar CD.
Yeah, and it's not worth it, by all accounts, to even go through the hassle of trying to find one.
Well, sure it is. You can play Highlander.
Cybermorph 2.
Oh, that's a thing?
Yeah, Cybermorph 2 is the killer app, apparently, if there is such a thing.
Alright.
But yeah, I mean, this is really cool for the people that are into the Jaguar. If I owned a Jaguar, I would own 2 games for it, Tempest and probably Alien vs. Predator, just for shits and gigs.
Game looks interesting.
I may buy, the the Defender game that they made, the Defender 2000 game, as well, just to have it to go with my Tempest 2000 game. But honestly, just like the 3DO, I can't see myself, collecting for that system at all. It's just one of those things. I'm just not interested. There's not enough on there
No, dude, you
for
gotta
me to
get
enjoy.
two Jaguars and a link cable, so you get the ideal experience for multiplayer.
Well, it's certainly not like the 3DO where you could just link the controllers, which is damn nutty.
That's bizarre.
Yeah, yeah. You could just plug one controller into the other, which is in a daisy chain.
Huh.
Yeah. The CDI is even worse. I would own a Jaguar way before I get a CDI. So anyway, and I would own a Nuon before I own a CDI.
A
CDI is
new
like
one.
the lowest on the list, I think.
Yeah, a
Um,
new one has Tempest 3000.
yeah,
The,
exactly.
the the lost Tempest game.
I mean, I have Tempest 4000 and TXK, so I'm pretty much set. And Space Giraffe, so I'm pretty much set. So. Plus, there's a fan remake of Tempest 2000 on the PC that's apparently bitchin'. So I'm okay with that. Going along with that, there is also another re-release console kind of thing. The Commodore 64 Mini came out like I think last year. Lazy Game Reviewer reviews did it a little while ago. You watch his stuff, right?
I've seen some of his stuff. It's very high quality.
Yeah, yeah. It was pretty cool, but it was a mini thing. And wasn't functional. You actually need to like plug an actual keyboard into it.
Okay.
So this brand new system is aiming to be like an emulation box that is an actual functional Commodore 64 at its heart, which is really neat. And it's HDMI out, and it's a functional keyboard.
Huh.
Just like the original Commodore 64 was. Back then, the Commodore 64, the whole computer was in the keyboard. It's in the computer, but it literally was like the so it's really cool, and it's coming with 64 packaged games, so that's pretty neat.
I get it.
And one last thing here for classic game kind of stuff. The FrameMeister is now officially dead.
Yeah, that's too bad.
They stopped producing it last week. Fortunately, we do have a similar solution that is readily available and really good for a lot of other reasons. So,
Yeah.
And that's it with the OSSC. I am still under the opinion that the FrameMeister is much easier to use. The OSSC is very much a hobbyist project kind of thing. If for anybody who doesn't know, this is these are both upscalers for old classic video game systems, particularly if you have them RGB modded or you have the proper cables for RGB. And the FrameMeister also had a lot of other input types. That's part of what made it so good. It had S-Video, whereas the OSSC does not. It also has component and composite. So really was at the forefront of upscaling when we got into it. It was the only thing it was basically the only game in town. You had to import them from Japan and basically buy them from people on forums. Nowadays it's a lot easier to get them, but it's finally died, and there is no successor announced. So who the hell knows whether Microsoft will follow up on it? But apparently, the major chip that was being used to make it is not manufactured anymore. So they'll either need to come up with something newer, or they may abandon it altogether because despite its popularity, it is a fringe product.
Yeah.
For sure. And let me see here. One last couple things. The new Umehara Kawase, which is the cute series about the girl who is a sushi chef and has a fishing pole and uses it to get around platforming stages, kind of like Bionic Commando, but stretchier.
Yeah.
The new game in the series, I believe it's the fourth one, will be on the Switch this week in English, which is pretty cool. And one final thing from me, Dr. Mario World is coming out on iOS and Android, which is another Nintendo mobile release. So that's really cool.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And you could do worse than probably their best, probably their second best puzzle series. Probably their best is Panel de Pon still, or Puzzle League. Puzzle League's really good, but I love Dr. Mario, so it has probably some of the most bitchin' music on the NES. I love the soundtrack to Dr. Mario, so I could listen to that music for hours. I don't know about you, but
I don't know the music.
oh, you would know it if you heard it.
Oh yeah, okay. I mainly remember that from Smash. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and the other song is really, really good too. It's Fever and Chill are the two songs. They're really, really catchy. And I believe you have two things that you wanted to go over before we wrap up.
Yeah, one of them is from last week. Attack on Titan Season 3 ended. Season 4 is coming in 2020. I think it might be the final season, which is crazy. That's pretty much really all I wanted to mention because...
Did they find out that they're actually on that moon of Jupiter, Titan?
Oh, it took me a second. I was like, Moon of Endor? Yes? No, but yeah, I'm not going to go into what happened at the end of Season 3 because that is, like, major spoiler material, but it looks like Season 4 is going to be going in a very different direction from how Seasons 1, 2, and most of 3 have gone. And I'm curious to see how that plays out. And as for One Piece is just continuing the way it always has, but I'm excited because they're starting the Wano arc. This was a thing where the crew split up into two groups, and one of them just went off, like after the Dressrosa arc where they fought Doflamingo, who was like the most badass opponent yet, the crew split into two. One was going to go to Wano, and Luffy's group was going to go to Big Mom's territory and try saving one of their crew members.
Big Mom,
She
terrifying.
is terrifying. And
yeah. She's probably, to me, the most intimidating, just because of how grotesque what she does to things.
She is intimidating.
Yeah.
I'll get to that in a moment. But anyway, Luffy's crew had to go save one of his crew members, and then basically leave. So, like, the thing is, literally every arc in One Piece has ended with the arc villain being really, really powerful, and it's this crazy fight at the end. Big Mom, almost the entire arc, was just trying to get the hell out of there. Like, there were definitely boss characters in that arc, but nobody knows what to do about Big Mom. Like, I think Luffy and a couple people tried attacking her real quick, and she was just like, yeah, no, and, like, blasted back, sitting back, and they're like, oh, shit, that won't work. And, like, basically, most of the arc was them getting the fuck out. And this was one of the very rare cases in the entire series. I've only seen it, like, a couple of times before, where the bad guy doesn't attack, and Luffy's like, oh, fuck this, and just, like, we have to leave now. Like that never happens. Luffy usually YOLOs, much to the rest of his crew's dismay, but this was like, no, out. But the problem is that they're finally made it to Wano. I've been waiting for this for months, probably over a year. The problem with Wano is the boss guy there, I don't know if he's physically there right now, but basically the boss there is another pirate emperor, because Big Mom is one. This other guy is another, Kaido, and he's called the King of Beasts, and we've seen what his right-hand man can do, and it's fucked up, and I don't know what you're going to do about that guy. And as for Kaido himself, like, I get the feeling this might be another runaway arc if they ever meet him, because the first time you ever meet Kaido in the series is when you see him on one of the Sky Islands, which took a whole process to get to for the crew, for the main characters, and it's literally a civilization in the clouds. And Kaido was up there, like cloud level, and he was trying to commit suicide. He jumped off of the cloud and fell for however many miles, crashed into an island and left like a cartoonish like himself shaped crater in the island, and then
Wow.
just got back up, and he's like, well, that didn't work. And I'm like, if he can't kill himself, what the fuck chance does an opponent have? So I don't know what's gonna go down over there, but like it's gonna be something else, I'm sure. I'm very excited about this.
Well, I'm excited to get there at some point.
Yeah, see you in like 10 years, dude.
Well, I plan on reading pretty steadily because I don't know whether I talked about this on
Yeah,
the
you got the Shonen
podcast.
Jump app, yeah.
Yeah, I got the Shonen Jump app. It's just like $2 a month, and you have access to all of the current, up to current Attack on Titan,
Yeah.
all of Dragon Ball, including Super. Um, let's see here. One Piece, One Punch Man,
Mm-hmm.
and JoJo, which
Yeah,
is
as far as
fantastic.
I actually just started reading JoJo again today. I've fallen off for a while, but as for One Piece, you'd better read it because like the
Yeah.
episode I just watched was 892.
No, I'm gonna be reading it. I actually started. It was actually kind of funny. I went ahead and started reading Dragon Ball because I kind of never really experienced Dragon Ball. I watched Dragon Ball Z, but we never really had a really good localization of Dragon Ball until much later.
Yeah, I was gonna
Um,
say we did, but it was later. I actually watched
yeah.
it on the later release, and I was like, "Oh, what's this?" And it was pretty cool.
It's really kind of quaint because like his first major foe is is
Like Yamcha.
well, no, that's a second major
Oh,
foe. It's
Oolong.
Oolong. Oolong's his
That's
first major
ridiculous.
foe.
Well, actually, one
Uh,
thing about Dragon Ball I really do like is that every character can do something. Because in Dragon Ball Z, Goku was the only guy who mattered at all until they were like, we gotta have more than one character who could do literally anything. So all of a sudden, the whole team started consisting of Saiyans, and it just didn't feel right. Like the entire Dragon Ball cast was just sidelined, and like maybe they'll fight some goons or something. But the only guy who could even attempt to fight final bosses were like Goku, Vegeta, Trunks. Like, but for like throughout the like through the Frieza arc, it was like the Goku show. Like that's all you could do.
wow, that's
I remember that. Like no one else could do
yeah.
anything in like all of Dragon Ball Z. It was a shame. Like the first bad guy is Raditz, so like Lunch, Tien, Yamcha, they're like, well, I'm out.
Yeah, and everybody dies.
That's true
So
too.
yeah,
Dragon Ball Z, like the way it was aired in America, Dragon Ball Z came out first, like you said. But like, I wish we had gotten Dragon Ball first because Dragon Ball Z had the most fucking insane opening ever if you knew what it signified.
dragon, rock the dragon.
No, that's not. No,
Oh,
that's
you
not
mean
what I
they
mean.
just kill off the major character like right at the very beginning?
Yeah, like Yu Yu
Yeah.
Hakusho started that way, but that was supposed to be out of context. Like Yusuke is the main character and he dies. How's the show gonna work? But Dragon Ball Z was a sequel show. So what happens? A guy one hit KOs Goku, which is fucking bananas.
He's
And
the most
then
powerful person on Earth.
yeah, and he
Yeah.
just one shots him in the first like 5 minutes of the series, and you're like, what? And then to beat him, Goku has to team up with his enemy, the final boss of Dragon Ball, Piccolo, and the way they make it work is Piccolo kills Goku and Raditz at the same time, so Goku's fucking dead, and then Piccolo just takes Gohan. He's like, I'm raising you now. Like, if you watch Dragon Ball before that, that's insane. Like you would not know how to react to that. In Dragon Ball Z, we're like, I guess this is how the show starts. Like in America, we're like, oh, this is an unconventional opening. But if we had seen Dragon Ball, our jaws would have been on the floor like the entire time.
Yeah, not to mention that like also like the very beginning of Dragon Ball is very comical. So
Yeah,
like I mean it gets serious later on with Piccolo is his greatest foe.
that's true.
Um
Yeah, the end of Dragon Ball is kind of starting to look a little bit like Dragon Ball Z. But the Dragon Ball Z opens and it's just like, nope, like everything is wrong.
but yeah, it's kind of like a raunchy like comedy series in
Yeah,
the
at
very
the very
beginning.
beginning of Dragon Ball. Yeah,
Yeah, it's kind of funny
yeah.
when you think about it. But I'm gonna quickly go through that because I don't think it's too long. I'm not gonna read all of Z. I'm just gonna read the original Dragon Ball. I might move on to that later, but I want to move on to One Piece eventually because the art is so good in the One Piece
One Piece is
manga. So
gorgeous. Yeah.
Not in fact, all the mangas that I mentioned that have beautiful art. I mean, they're it's so funny because like as much as you might like the show, the manga's art is almost exclusively better.
Yeah. I just
Which
can't believe that the manga ripped off of Chrono Trigger with the art design. It's unbelievable. I can't believe they ripped off of Dragon Quest 11.
you play as Goku in all of them. It's kind of true.
Yeah.
But why does everybody look like Dr. Slump? Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that'll do it for this week, unless you have any final notes here.
No, that's pretty much it for me.
Okay, well, that is the show for this week. Please remember to subscribe to the Corrective Consciousness YouTube and SoundCloud pages. While there, please give us thumbs up, 5-star ratings on iTunes, and likes. It helps promote and spread awareness of the show, and any bit of encouragement helps keep the show going. You can also catch us on Thursday for our sister podcast, Corrective Consciousness, where we'll have a nice discussion about Koji Igarashi and the new Bloodstained game. The podcast where we explore the inanity of pop culture. Finally, you can friend me as vysethebold on Steam, PSN, Xbox Live, Twitter, and Switch and Battle.net.
And you could follow me on my YouTube channel, Lotus Prince. You can hit me up at Lotus Prince on Twitter. And finally, if you are interested in seeing my videos early, getting in on exclusive live streams, like Juggernaut for the PS1, you all know that one, right? It's fine. I was so funny, I distracted myself. Selecting upcoming games for me to Let's Play. So I got a pretty cool request coming up for my next Patreon requested Let's Play. But the last one was Alien Isolation. And finally, getting involved in a Discord chat with me and other patrons, then perhaps consider swinging by my Patreon account, which can be found at patreon.com/LotusPrince.
Okay, well, we'll see everybody on Thursday for another episode of Corrective. Catch you then.
Until next time, everyone.
Bye.